What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on the channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, this is a video coming by popular request. It is just a 2024 outlook, so similar to what I did looking back at 2023, some of the big wins and losses. This is, I want to say, like, it's partially a prediction, partially a wish list, partially just taking whatever we know the team wants to focus on. So again, I don't want to put this out there and say, like, I think all of this is going to happen. Some of it is, I hope some of this happens, right? And it happens in this specific order. But in terms of what I'm expecting for the entirety of 2024, based on what the team has said, based on all the things that we would like to see, this is just, if you put a gun to my head, which, you know, people figuratively did because they asked for this video. Well, I'm just trying to put it out. I have no idea if it's actually going to play out like this, but let's just, again, I'm just humoring it. So please humor me in terms of figuring out how 2024 is going to look. So let's go ahead and break this down by quarter. The first things first, though, the team's main focus, as stated in their December, I think, 18th town hall, so right towards the end of 2023, is that they have two main focuses: land and new player experience. So that's going to be kind of the anchor point for which I look at the rest of the year. And I'll be honest, I mean, it's more so, I feel like the beginning of the year, or the first half of the year, there's a lot more that we can talk about. Once we get in the second half of the year, a year is a very long time, so we have no idea what's going to happen between now and then and what craziness can absolutely ensue, or lack thereof, if it ends up being a bit of a dud year with the Bitcoin ETF and halving, and maybe, you know, things get pushed off into the future. So let's start with Q1. All right, so focusing in on land. Again, my expectations, my wish list is that we get the top two items on the list that the team provided for land 1.6 off the table: Grain LP and the prefix titles. And I think both of those have the opportunity to be quite productive for land and for the entirety of the ecosystem, right? Once the Grain LP is live, you'll get people who, if grain is super cheap and they don't want to bother going to the secondary market or the peer-to-peer market, they can just go and buy it there and, you know, focus in on research, focus in on SPS if they want to. And then, of course, the prefix titles, to me, when you get the top 10 to 15 to maybe 20 accounts that are all going to be fighting for those titles, those are whale accounts, and whales can move markets. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the the top players jockey for position in order to get those titles. But my hope is that by the end of Q1, which we're talking about January to the end of March, by the end of Q1, we'll have both of these items for land. Hopefully more, but, you know, again, my thought is that we can at least get these two items in over the next 3 months, or I guess 2.5 months at this point. Now, for new player experience, there were a lot of things listed. Some of them, you know, the only tangible thing that was put on that list, I would say, was one-click rentals, right? Something that's just super easy for a new player to come in and just click. And the thing is, I think that this is not just a new player experience. This is a all-player experience, because I would love to have one-click rentals. If I want to be able to go in and, rent a bunch of cards for an entire set at gold level, I want to, that'd be fantastic. If I could filter and be like, I want all Riftwatcher cards, or I want all Rebellion cards, or all whatever cards, I want, basically go in and rent it for me. And I know we have certain elements of that outside the game right now through third parties with something like Peak Monsters, but having it in-game, having it readily available, I think makes it a lot easier for new players, which is why it's under the new player experience. But ultimately, it's something that I think could be valuable no matter what. Now, that's the only thing for new player experience, because as you can see here, I'll skip down to Q2 real quick. Everything else was like tutorials, tips, just little help sections to make it easier for new players to get onboarded. Again, stuff that probably won't impact people who've been around for months or years like myself. So at this point, right, it's kind of like I expect the first 6 months of new player experience development and work to really just be the one-click rentals, and then, focusing in on everything else. Now, to round out Q1, we do have the Conflicts launch, which I think everybody's expecting this month in January. And it sounds like with the most recent announcement of the town hall on Thursday the 18th of January, that they're going to talk about Conflicts. So the hope is that, Conflicts should be releasing shortly after that. And then, there was a lot of tease about a card burn event using, Riftwatcher packs and titles and promos and stuff like that as a way to get people to burn all the extra cards, similar to what they did last summer, but for DEC. Now, Matt seemed to like the idea. There was a proposal that was voted down a couple of months ago, but Matt said that he would want to run one through the team or through the company anyway. So, with not much else going on, I would expect a card burn event to happen in Q1, especially, and here's the interesting thing, especially if they start to do these burn events annually, or maybe more specifically biannually. Like, for example, what if we were to do a card burn in Q1 of every year, if it made sense? And what if we were to do a DEC burn in Q3 of every year? I know we did it in June, which is technically June of 2023, which is technically Q2, but I'm just talking about summer. So if we can get to that point where there's interesting incentives, different kinds of rewards, and maybe stuff that's used through, what's that called? Promo cards and things like that, where the team can kind of combine the incentives. I really think that there's a lot of value that can come in from that. But again, we'll have to wait and see. So that's kind of Q1 for me in a nutshell. Again, we're already halfway through the first month, or almost halfway through the first month, and we're not really going to get any more information until the first town hall of the year. So we'll have to wait and see how everything else shapes up from there. Now with Q2, as I said earlier, just skipping down to the new player experience, I think it's just going to be a bunch of tutorials, tips, making it easier to onboard somebody who's brand new to the game, somebody who might be brand new to crypto, and just help them to understand what exactly is going on in the Splinterlands ecosystem as soon as they arrive. For land, there were a couple of other items, right? So soulbound reward cards being unlockable, and then just a bunch of other things, kind of like smaller items, I would say, for land 1.6. My hope, and I don't know where the team is aligned on this from a time standpoint, but my hope is that they can knock out all of the 1.6 items, which were technically supposed to be part of 1.5, but kind of got pushed to their own thing. My hope is that they can knock out all the 1.6 items by the end of Q2, which would be, April to June. So the end of June, which would mean that, by the first half of the year, we are done and ready to start focusing on 2.0. And this is why I keep saying who's like super excited about 2.0 and everything that's happening. I really don't think we're going to get anything tangible for 2.0 until Q3, but we'll get to Q3 in a second. The other thing that I would like to see in Q2 is the launch of Rebellion reward cards. Now, there's already been a little bit of grumbling in, can we unlock these cards? A lot of players, especially at the top tier, right, Diamond and Champion players, are getting a ton of extra cards. And, the print rate for these is already extremely high, at least relative to sold sets, we'll put it that way, or core sets. But my hope is that we are going to get these Rebellion cards in Q2. Q1 might not make much sense, right? Everybody's focused on the new Rebellion core set that just launched in December. It's changed up the meta. People are super excited about it. But I think that the grumbling will get a little bit louder. And now that the team has had a chance, hopefully, to figure out how they want to do the next set of Rebellion reward or the next set of reward cards, which would be under Rebellion, I really would like to see them get that out within 6 months of the launch of Rebellion, right? So that would be the first half of this year. Now, if maybe they push that off, maybe they don't, but again, for me, they initially said that it could go anywhere from 1 to 2 years. I'm putting it at kind of like the 1.5 year mark, splitting the difference, and I feel like it would make sense for them to have to focus on doing it at that point, just so that in Q2, Q1 we don't need it, but in Q2 there's going to be a nice, relevant, fresh mix to the meta, all brought in by new cards, maybe new abilities, and who knows what else. So that kind of rounds out Q2 for me. Now let's go here to Q3 with land. What's difficult, and I talked about this on several live streams. What's difficult to figure out is if they decide to release land 2.0 in kind of a piecemeal fashion, even though we have everything from like the white paper rough draft that they put out, even though we have like an idea. Just for me, it's difficult to figure out where they would start, but my hope is that they will be able to start. And if I had to take a guess, it would probably be in, building buildings, right? So you'll be able to start maybe building your buildings first and then start focusing on raw resources that you can mine or you can gather from your specific land plots. When we get into refining, when we get into all the other things, all the different resources, I don't know what the order is going to be, but my hope is that we do get some initial elements of that in Q3. Keep in mind, the time frame for Q3 is July 1st to the end of September. Now, for new player experience, if everything goes well with the tutorials, tips, with the one-click set rentals, the team feels like they're in a position, and that may even go into Q3. So you can say new player experience, not just for Q3 but for Q4, right? Just the entire second half of the year. What I would love to see are some marketing and some partnerships done in creative and unique ways to onboard huge communities. So what do I mean by that? Well, we could see maybe like a Rooney 2.0. We could see the team kind of, maybe working with bigger guilds. And the reason that I'm talking about this in Q3 is because if we do get what I'm hopefully expecting from a broader crypto perspective after the halving, a fun summertime narrative that revolves around AI, DeFi, gaming, right? All of these things, I think Splinterlands can fit uniquely in there, along with many other projects, right? And we can be part of that conversation. And if there's a lot of attention at that point, it will be fantastic to partner up with another project or another community at that point in time over the summer, right? Now, could that still happen in Q4? Absolutely. But if I'm paralleling Q3 or 2024 to like 2020, you had DeFi summer all throughout 2024. Then things got really quiet in Q3. September tends to be really slow. And then everything started ramping up in Q4. So again, it's kind of like just a mix. We'll see what ends up happening. But my hope is that all the new player experience stuff that the team wants to do, which I would assume that they're prioritizing, I hope that they get it done by the end of Q2 so that in Q3 and beyond, they can start focusing on doing, legitimate marketing, or I don't want to say legitimate, but, heavier marketing that they were doing before, and any kind of partnerships that would make sense to bring, new communities and new eyeballs to the project in a constructive way. The other thing for Q3, which I'm expecting based on the launch timing of Rift Watchers almost a year and a half ago, is the mini set launch. Now, Rift Watchers came out in September of 2022. Granted, I know that the team, or at least Matt has said that we're focusing on roughly like 18-month cycles here. So if we launched, December of 2023, we'll just say like a year and a half from there's going to be summer of 2025. So the midway point, right, for those 18 months would be about 9 months in to 2024, which would be about September. And again, that matches up or lines up very nicely with what we did for Rift Watchers just 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago at this point. So my hope is that we will get that mini set launch, and kind of what I was referring to earlier, where it's just like Q1 is going to be fun because we already have the Rebellion meta shaking things up. If Q2 comes out and they get the Rebellion reward cards, cool. We have another quarter of awesome meta shakeups. In Q3, if we get the mini set launched, awesome. We get yet another meta shakeup, right? And Rebellion and the Rebellion reward cards have been out for a while and people are enjoying it. So, my hope is that we do get to see that before the end of the year, ideally in September-ish. I think that makes the most sense. But of course, it could potentially get pushed to Q4. Now, Q4, it's pretty quiet. Again, I really don't know how to think that far out in terms of like what the team will and will not be able to accomplish by then. So I just kept it pretty sparse. For land, hopefully there's going to be some more, 2.0 elements that they put in. But I do want to specifically call out the Ancient Ruins project. And that is where anybody can come in and start staking cards, right? Max level cards, along with delegating staked SPS. So this is going to be something that's open to everybody that does not have, a land ownership requirement to it. And I really think that, if the earlier that they can get that in would be fantastic. If they can get that in Q3, it makes sense. But then you're going to have gemstones starting to come in while nothing else is really playable. So that's why I put it in Q4, thinking to myself, okay, if they can get certain elements of Land 2.0 in, then one of the last things that I hope that they do, or by the end of the year, is get this Ancient Ruins project started. Because once again, if we are following 2020 and 2016, Q4 could be an interesting time. Bitcoin could start to, or maybe even actually start to approach or to pass its previous all-time high if it doesn't do that sooner this year. But again, we could just be leading into an interesting time within a broader bull market. Again, if we're following, the past performance and kind of trend of Bitcoin, we'll call it. So if they can get that up at the end of the year, I think that would be really critical, because then anybody coming in, if they're not already caught up on land, or land is maybe, priced out or too expensive, they can just come in and participate, right? They can just come in and participate. And to me, that's where, Ancient Ruins seems to get a lot of attention from the team, just, through the white paper. So if they can get that out, that would be fantastic. And then the final thing, I'm not putting this here just to be annoying or just to be bearish, but I really don't know what to expect with Soulkeep. Right. So I'm not putting it any earlier than Q4. I don't know how close the team is to getting another third party to come in and develop and launch it. When a third party comes in, I don't know how close and how close they would be to launch and how much work that they need to put into it. So at this point, again, I know it sounds terrible, but my hope is that we get Soul Keep out in 2024. Will we? I have no idea. In my honest opinion, with just the way things have gone down, I really feel like this should be a top priority for the team right now. Again, this is just my personal opinion, right? Considering that it's been a year and a half since packs were sold, we were told about a game. We're approaching the 1 year mark of the beta, essentially showing that there is a playable game out there. So if it were up to me, I think that now that Rebellion and Land 1.5 are out, sure, maybe the team doesn't want to devote resources, but I think they do need to get somebody who can launch it. And I would say launch it in Q1, right? So within the next 10 weeks here at this point, just because you don't want it to drag on any longer. But I didn't want to put, again, I don't want to put that expectation on myself first and foremost. It's not like I can put pressure on the team or anything, but I don't want to put that expectation on myself, even though that's what I feel like if I was in that position, I'd be, jumping like crazy just to find an opportunity to get it out as soon as possible. But being realistic here, I'm going to put this all the way to the end of the year. If it ends up happening sooner, fantastic. But considering that, the team does not want to add it onto their plate, and there's a bunch of other things that we've already talked about that are going to take up a significant amount of time and resources, I just don't see Soul Keep happening. Well, let me just put it this way. I don't know what the priority level for Soul Keep is. Granted, another team could come on. Maybe they even announce it on the next town hall, right, on January 18th, and that team comes in, and within 2 weeks, boom, it's just like, hey, we're ready to go, right? So that would be awesome. But I'm just, for my own mental sanity, I'm putting Soul Keep by the end of Q4 because I really, really think that they should get it out by the end of this year, which would be, more than 2 years after the sale of the packs. But that's kind of my 2024 outlook. I would love to know from you guys how you feel about this. If there's things that you think should be added or swapped around or maybe taken out. Again, I'm trying to be as comprehensive as I possibly can be, but I'm sure I might have missed certain things. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next video and see you around the game. Take care.